Bobby Torres of Frightbox Recording here to share with you my approach to adding excitement and character to vocal tracks using saturation. Now, there's a very specific reason why engineers love analog equipment so much. Whether it's a tape machine, a tube or transformer-based preamp, or even an analog console, analog equipment generally imparts a pleasing character to any signal that's being processed through it. And the problem with using a modern setup like a simple DAW and interface is that what you put in is what you get out. Interfaces are for the most part 100% transparent. And when it comes to musical applications, you want character in your mixes. You want character in your productions. And because of this, you sometimes have to add that character within your DAW in the mixing stage. Okay, so I have an audio sample here that features some clean female vocals within a metal mix where I utilize some saturation to kind of add some extra character. So I'm gonna play the sample, and then after the sample, I'm gonna dissect piece by piece exactly how I achieved the vocal sound that I achieved in this mix. So let's check it out. Okay, so that sample is by my good friends in a band called Me With Creeps, and the vocal track was a guest vocal spot by my good friend Jenny Torres, of no relation to me. After tracking the vocals, I felt like the vocals sounded great within the mix, but they just needed this extra bit of character. They sounded too clean, too sterile, too digital. When people say things sound digital, generally what that means is that they're too bright and there's just not enough character, not enough saturation happening. And that's just a natural byproduct of digital recording. Like I previously mentioned, when you have a simple setup going on, you're recording a very, very clean signal. Okay, so I'm gonna play for you what the vocals sounded like before I applied the extra saturation. And then I'm gonna add the saturation and show you my exact signal chain and how I achieved the extra character. So let's listen to the vocal by itself here.
Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke now, to run.
Okay, so aside from some basic EQ and compression, there's not a whole lot going on my actual vocal track itself. Here's my vocal track with her vocal on it. There's a send, there's a reverb send and a delay that's being sent only on certain words and phrases. And then there's a send here labeled saturation. So this signal through this send is being sent to this stereo aux track. On the aux track, I have some plugins. I have a distortion plugin, I have an EQ plugin, and I have a Deesser plugin. So I'm going to go through each plugin and explain what each one is doing. So the first plugin, the distortion plugin, is adding distortion. Now, this is just the stock distortion plugin within Pro Tools. I will use anything, I really don't care. I do not need a fancy plugin to get this effect. It's just a simple distortion plugin that's adding saturation and harmonics to the signal. I've used distortion plugins within Reaper, Logic, Cubase, a whole bunch of them, and they all kind of do the same thing. So aside from my distortion plugin, I have a basic EQ. So my EQ here, I have a low shelf that's just pulling out a little bit of the low frequencies, a little bit of lower mids, and then I'm boosting a little bit of top end because I wanted the distortion to have this kind of character when I blended it in with my original sound. So again, the original sound is happening, and then I have this secondary saturation that's sitting behind my original sound. I'm gonna demonstrate it in just a second. After that, I have a de-esser. The reason why I have a de-esser happening after the EQ is I boosted the top end on that distortion track. So the de-esser is keeping her sibilances in check on the distortion track, not on her original track. So let's listen to what this distortion sounds like completely on its own. So I'm gonna play that same section back. I'm gonna turn it up a little. And here's the distortion that's happening behind her vocal track, unprocessed, just the distortion. Let's check it out.
Has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke.
Now, as you can hear, it is clearly distorted. I would never use this as the main vocal sound. This is just being blended in, again, behind the vocal sound. But I felt like it was a little too boxy, a little too nasally, so that's why I applied the EQ. Now let's listen to what the EQ is doing.
Well, something has given me reasons to run.
So that's with the EQ. Here's with the EQ bypass again.
Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke.
Again, I would never use this sound on its own unless I wanted some deliberate lo-fi kind of effect. This is being added to my main vocal sound to really kind of like impart a pleasing character. So after that, again, I have a simple de-esser. Let's hear what the de-esser is doing.
Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke now. To run.
Yeah, the de-esser is just keeping her sibilances in check, because what ended up happening was when I added this effect to her vocal track, it was really over-exaggerating all of her sibilances in a very non-musical way. And I wanted this to just make the vocal track sound a lot warmer, a lot more lush, and just make it blend well with the guitar tracks. So with that being said, let's listen to the vocal track on its own, the original one, and then I'm gonna slowly blend in the saturation so you could hear what it's adding to the original vocal sound. Let's check it out.
Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke now.
So as you can hear it adds this nice, almost analog-y kind of character to the vocal track. And the tools that I'm using are just stock plugins, except for the de-esser. The de-esser is a Waves plugin, but any de-esser will work. The de-esser isn't really adding to the character, it's just there to keep the sibilances in check. But yeah, you can do this with any distortion plugin. I would recommend just a simple distortion plugin and not an amp sim, because an amp sim is gonna have like cabinet modeling and things like that. This is just a simple distortion plugin that's adding extra harmonics to the original signal. Now I've had people ask me, why don't I just add this plugin to the vocal track and just use a wet dry knob? And here's the thing, I want to be able to EQ the saturation. If I have this plugin directly on my vocal track, there's no way for me to EQ the saturation separately. In this case, I have maximum control. It's kind of like the old school way of doing it, and I feel like the old school way sometimes is the best way. So now, let's hear what this sounds like within the context of the music. I'm gonna just unsolo this, and let's hear what this vocal sounds like. Let's check it out.
Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke now. To run. Well, something has given me reasons to run. Something has given me reasons to smoke now. To
So there you have it. That's my approach to adding a little more excitement and character to a vocal track to make it sit a little more naturally within a metal production. If you have found this video helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to click the little bell icon in order to be notified every time I upload one of my weekly videos on all things metal and rock production. You can both like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the description below. And don't forget to download my free quick EQ guide that contains all my EQ settings that I always return to when starting a mix. There's a link below within the video's description. Till next time, happy mixing.